goodness being written around Bitcoin, right? Ledger X, CFTC, all these things point to this currency. And you look at the other currencies, what do you have? No adoption, no wallets, huge security surface, networks are down all the time. That's why I love Bitcoin. Why do you like Bitcoin?
Okay, well, let's talk about the definition of Bitcoin now, because from my perspective, we had Bitcoin before. There was one chain, then it split. Okay, so it's like, before we had cat, and now there's like tiger and lion. Okay, so Bitcoin is both of them. Okay, I don't think it makes sense to just arbitrarily say that one of them is Bitcoin.
Well, I can
because they
crush
both
that
have the
argument
same
for you
history.
in a second. I'll crush that for you real quick. So you're making an assumption, which is wildly wrong, that the blockchain is what matters. It is not what matters. Okay, you can take your copy of the blockchain and make 1 million copies of it and print it and spread it all over the world, and you'll find out it has no utility on its own whatsoever. The blockchain itself is only given value by the people who allow it to have value through building exchanges for it, running the very specific client that speaks to the very specific network that they have chosen and tested and put the faith in the developers of and put the faith in the miners of. So the reason blockchains and Bitcoin has any value at all has nearly nothing to do with the blockchain itself and everything to do with the social consensus, the shelling point that this is the cryptocurrency that we've chosen. This is what I'm willing to sacrifice my hours and my money for.
No, I totally agree with all that. Agree.
Okay. So when you create a fork, that fork has none of those things that has utility. All of the things that actually matter, it starts with none of those. It gets a new ticker symbol.
I really disagree. I think it starts with the most important thing. It starts with the same network of owners.
It does not.
It doesn't have the same exchanges. So you're right. There are some things it doesn't have, but I think it starts with the most important thing.
Network of owners. Because if it did, more people would have dumped. The vast majority of people that were, quote, given these things have never seen them, accessed them, heard of them, and thus it is unfair to consider that a form of ownership when a person sitting on a boat enjoying his Bitcoin earnings has never even listened to the news that, hey, some guy decided that now you own some other stuff, whether you wanted to or not. So, you need to start hopping your feet and skipping and jumping so that Daniel's game theory fantasy can come true. It's not the case. You can't just say a person okay, what if I told you before the show, I gave you something that you didn't get told about? Do you really own it?
No. Listen, no, the vast majority of people shouldn't care about what's happening now. Most people do not have the level of commitment or interest in Bitcoin. Most investors shouldn't care. And what I like about forks is they don't have to care. So if there's a fork, they still own their Bitcoins, whichever one wins. They don't even have to think about it.
That is also not the case. You've described a very select subset of nice forks that has no reason for having that restriction at all. That fork could have forked out Satoshi's coins. That fork could have forked out coins that weren't being used. That fork could have introduced demurrage and reduced the value of the currency. What you're saying, you should stop saying. There's no, and by the way, how much more harmful do you need a fork to be before you realize it sucks? What? I mean, this fork is bad.
Listen,
I guess you're waiting for the B2X fork to be worse?
I want the next time Bitcoin forks, I want it to be a lot nicer. But I'm happy that any fork happened.
Okay, well, then you have to choose one of the two statements. You can't say you want it to be nicer and that you don't want replay tax, or that you do want replay tax. You can't have both, because replay attacks aren't nice.
Why aren't they nice?
Because you're taking my speech, which I'm broadcasting to the network of my choice, and copying it against my will to create financial problems for me. Fuck that. We have in the normal world laws against you copying my speech for your benefit, right? And that's what happens when you take my transaction and replay it on a fucking network I didn't want it played on, and make it hard for me to not replay that. To give an example, let's say you're eating in a restaurant and some guy walks up to you and listens to your conversation and starts yelling what you say across the other side of the restaurant. And this pisses off everyone else in the restaurant. That's what a replay attack is. And I'll tell you the truth, I don't know why people that support replay attacks don't get more shit from the community for being basically evil to push their idea of what should be technically correct.
Okay,
you want to make a new technically correct altcoin? Go airdrop it to the holders, and you don't need to touch the original thing.
Okay, so can I respond to that?
Sure.
So for my, remember when I said that most Bitcoin holders shouldn't have to care about what's happening now. So from my perspective, it seems good that if they make a transaction, that it should just automatically show up on both networks, because that keeps things more even. Like if I want to split the coins, that should be something that should
be made another assumption that doesn't make any sense in reality. Your confirmation can get go through on one side and never go through on the other side. And now what?
Well,
so in the real world, like everything in the real world, like crushes all of your theories, but like, I don't know why you don't care. Like all you have to do is like take your models that you're generating, which seem cool, and then actually like run one or two tests in your head and go, oh, it doesn't have to be a clean fork. Oh, the transactions won't go through. Oh, look at this like,
oh, wait. Oh, that's something earlier that you said that I have to respond to, because you were talking about how like the fork could introduce demiurge or something, right? So I would say that if they did that, that fork would lose value very rapidly. So
well, apparently
nice forks will stay valuable longer.
Right now is printing a block reward every minute instead of every 10 minutes, and they don't seem to be having a problem. They've got one single dev who's a dickhead. They don't seem to be having a problem. So you're making another assumption that the market can tell the difference between a technically good coin and a technically bad coin. You yourself are already aware that they cannot because of your position on altcoins. So like, you believe in competition because you believe that investors will choose the better thing and then we'll get better stuff. But reality doesn't show that to be the case. Enron did quite well as an evil, horrible company that made the world a worse place, and investors didn't do anything about it. Volkswagen was polluting the shit out of the environment. What were investors doing about that? So the concept that you're like appeals to making the world a better place technically are to rely on idiots that don't know anything technical is stupid and has no root in reality. Investors, by and large, do not make good technical decisions, nor will they ever.
Okay, well, so I want a world where dumb investors lose money as quickly as possible. And the way that you do that is by giving them options. I think forks are a better option than altcoins.
I believe that a fork that was non-contentious or didn't try to destroy the original thing and just created like a small form of dividend or something along those lines is probably better than an altcoin. Maybe, right? But that's only because altcoins suck so bad. What was the topic right before this? Investors being bad at choosing good technical things.
Right.
And then, fuck, I missed it. There was a good point in there. So in your world where so you say it's better if stupid investors lose money quicker. And once again, I will introduce you to like how things actually work, right? The thing that actually works is regulation and prevention of problems instead of huge problems happening and then being able to go to a court and say, oh, but look, my contract, okay? It's better to not pollute the environment than to wait until the environment is polluted and then wait for someone to report it and then wait for everyone to do their due diligence and subpoena ducis tecum and then get a court date and then get a delay and then get a delay. And then after the environment's real good and fucked up, you say, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that. You're going to have to give us some money. That's bad, okay? So retribution and courts and redress are a very, very, very poor answer to unregulated environments. And an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so this concept that we should try all the things and let a bunch of people lose the shit out of their money on a bunch of stupid technical ideas because in your fantasy libertarian world, that's a better way to do things, has no root in reality. And the only places where that actually works are ones with infinite energy. That does work in evolution because the sun produces so much energy and it works exactly nowhere else. So in a fantasy world where you didn't care about humans' feelings, you didn't care about people losing their life savings, you didn't care about devs throwing their lives away, you didn't care about people jumping out of windows because their investment went to zero or worse, right? If you didn't care about any of those things and there was infinite free money or free energy, you could do all the experiments you want. But that's not the world we live in. The world we live in is one with a lot of restrictions and a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and not that many people and really not that many places to gather the energy, right? We've got a lot of restrictions. And so let's use the ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure and not grind up people like meat into investment grinding machines because you maybe possibly could get a 10% more effective network. Maybe. It doesn't work.
Okay, well, I don't, let's not get into politics. I'll just let you say all of that and, whatever.
Okay, so give me an
as
example
to
of a system that has been evolutionarily evolved, which is kicked ass, because all you're describing is evolution. That's all
Yeah.
you're describing. So
Okay,
you let me know, other than actual physical entities that use the sun for energy, you tell me where evolution has worked.
Other than when people use
Where has evolution worked? You're describing you want to evolve cryptocurrencies and you want a bunch of them to get killed and you want a bunch of investors to lose money and you want to give the smart investors the stupid people's money and you want to like treat people as non-humans and watch them just get wasted for some technical benefit. So I'm curious where else you've seen evolution work in a non-infinite energy system. It doesn't work in the stock market.
Okay,
It doesn't work anywhere.
Earth is not an infinite energy system. I mean, there is there is a limited amount of energy that comes from the sun to the Earth in a given amount of time. It's not an infinite energy system.
Do you want me to back off the statement infinite and just say lots and lots of energy? I'll do it if you want.
I think that.
But it's a weak point, right?
Okay, let's go back to the handicap principle here. So I don't think that there's a difference between lots of energy and little amounts of energy, because the deer will grow antlers that are just big enough to take up all the energy.
That's not what deer have antlers for. First of all, it's a bad analogy because they have them part for social signaling and part for actually fighting. So yeah, let's not use deer antlers. Colorful bird feathers at least aren't used for fighting, right?
Sure. Okay, that's good. Yeah, I like those too.
Okay. So
can I respond to your point about theory and reality?
Yes.
Okay. So what I say that I'm doing is I want to make the world more like my theory. I'm not saying that my theory describes reality. I'm saying that I'm imposing my theory on reality.
Okay. How's that going? How's reality responding to this effort?
It's going great.
All right.
I'm very happy with how it's going.
so let's do a test. Let's run a test on your theory. I'll just say, so far my points have been hard forks are terrible. They're a real cost.